Good afternoon. I sincerely hope you're enjoying the conference and have done so up to now. I'm Ms. Einav Yogev, and I'd like to talk about one of the most popular topics on your smartphones, etc., and that's called delegitimization, the BDS, boycott Israeli goods. Tzipi Livni, there's a decree of arrest against her, other people boycotting Elbit. If you were watching the satirical program on television, Eretz Nehederet, they probably watched it, and after all, that is our tribal bonfire. That really shows the centrality of it when the moment it appears on that satirical program on the television. And don't forget, there's so many people who are warning us of the delegitimization and those dangers that encroach on Israel, especially over the last years. We have heard about activities that are being carried out, and they are actually aimed against us, cultural ones, academic ones. Even in Germany, one of our best friends in the European Union, if not our best friend, has said that they don't want to give any grants to high-tech. And even in Davos, Kerry warned us about this isolation that might be increased and expanded if there is a failure of talks with the Palestinians. So what should we do? Well, at the moment, there isn't that much damage being caused to Israel, but the multiplicity, the plethora of campaigns that are being actually gone and the aspersions that are being cast is creating a situation where there is a risk. So there's a fear that there might be a leakage into some of the official establishments, the government ones, the non-government ones, to such a situation that we might in the end be officially internationally boycotted. So the government, despite all sorts of political reservations that it may have, did create some kind of reactionary board, and we can see activities other than the fact that there's actually an emergency meeting in the government today. We can see widespread activities in the embassies, in the Ministry of Justice, and in the Ministry of the Deals in Issues of Public Relations and Hasbara, as we call it. So, and our team the Institute have agreed that yes, the fears are justified. This is a phenomenon that needs to have a great deal of attention paid towards it. But the way Israel has chosen to react it is also the way that it will dictate its results, whether we will fail or succeed. So we wanted to delve more deeply in our team to see how Israel is grappling with it and what we are doing it. So what is our whole ideological path that we have chosen to embark on? And we have met with other people, some official channels and others. And this is what I would like to say, that this is the kind of that there is an organized system of delegitimization against Israel. That is the way we perceive what is happening around us, that the criticism will continue, and it doesn't matter what our policy is in Israel, and there's no significant discrimination between the various kinds of criticism. In other words, when they talk about the criticism on its policy is in fact a criticism of its existence. The spectrum of this criticism, on one hand, you can see on this scale, you've got the legitimate criticism and the delegitimization on the other end. A whole myriad of activities on the side of the delegitimization, its significant anti-Semitism, and a whole delegitimization of the country itself. And also, on the other hand, you have legitimate criticism, which actually talks about various things that are legitimate, but that can be discussed, some of them coming out from the United States as well. But on this spectrum, there are endless other issues. You've got the rhetoric of delegitimization has brought about a situation that a lot of those declarations are being colored in the same color, and it all looks the same, and it doesn't matter what you hear, and it all seems to be delegitimization. It'll always be a political kind of differentiation and discernment. Just a few days ago, there was a discussion in the government about anti-Semitism, and one of the ministers claimed that any criticism about the settlements is anti-Semitic and it is illegitimate. But on the other hand, they said no, that it might be legitimate. So therefore, we have to try and listen in very carefully and understand what it means when we all say delegitimization. So yes, one of the people said that this is a kind of intimidation campaign. We are responsible for for our policies, and we do try and respond to these things. And we tag all those who are criticizing us immediately as if they are some of the delegitimizers, and they are the friends of those, in fact. And basically, we are strengthening these marginal groups and adding to what is going on. We think in our team that we ought to dismantle that term and actually dismantle those who say that are negating the right of Israel to exist and those who are criticizing Israel. Yes, sometimes certain criticism could actually be utilitarian. It could actually help us to a certain degree. It could be beneficial to us, but we don't think so. We think that we should put on one side that way of thinking, that spectrum, that whole bubble of delegitimization, as opposed to actually justified, legitimate criticism. On the other hand, we have to look at all those who are criticizing, because after all, those who are trying to delegitimize us, we will never be able to actually reach a dialogue with them. After all, it's PR, and our mechanisms are very well oiled, especially when they try and cope with this situation here in Israel, and they can counter it. But if we do take this sort of term apart, and there are people who are working with anti-Zionist motivation, but it's worthwhile that we should listen to the people who talk to us and to try and reach a dialogue and find some kind of compromise, because of those who are trying to influence the policy, and there are others who it is legitimate. There are those who, however critical they are trying to be against us, they have no right to say that Israel has no right to exist, because what is necessary in that case? We think that we ought to reframe this phenomenon and differentiate between those who are criticizing us and focus on who said it, what did they say, and only as a derivative of that decide how we respond to it. Israel has to develop a whole kind of treatment, a differential treatment of this, adapted to the kind of criticism, not try and extinguish fires in one fell swoop, but rather we ought to generalize the actual component of the implications on the position of Israel. We ought to create a very open discourse, be ready to listen more and more with those who are criticizing us, and I think of paramount importance should be, and I sincerely hope that people heard what we're trying to say in the government as well. We have to take into account considerations that are connected to the position of Israel when decisions are being made.